Christopher Fulham is a Western Sydney-based creative practitioner with a background in sound, multimedia and interactive installation. Welcome, John. Take a seat. If you can find room. After completing his Bachelor of Music and doing an honours year at Western Sydney University, right here on this stage, his research explored immersive audio artworks. He went on to combine a passion for music technology and community engagement in both artistic and public library settings. Christopher, we're using your full name because you're in trouble, has exhibited interactive works such as Moon Milk at the Shoalhaven Regional Gallery, supported by Museums and Galleries New South Wales, and presented installations at Casula. Is that the correct pronunciation? Is it Casula or Casula?
Casula.
Casula. Powerhouse and Campbelltown Arts Centre. Alongside his arts practice, he has over a decade of experience building and managing creative studios in public libraries. Bit of a niche, but a good niche. Spaces like Studio 2166, CreateSpace and The Space digital studios that empower communities to experiment with sound, media and emerging technologies. We have some emerging technology here. His career reflects a commitment to exploring the intersection of art, sound and technology, while making those tools accessible to others. Would you all put your hands together and welcome Chris Fulham to the stage? Come on down.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. If you speak into this, it will make it to the recording.
Is this better? Yeah.
Let's get a step.
Oh, he's got a lapel on me.
Lapel.
Yeah.
Okay, you're all good.
Cool. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming, and thank you to Noel for inviting me to have a bit of a talk today and an opportunity to bring in some of my works. Some of them that are works in progress, and I'm just really honoured to be back here and talking to you guys. And today, as Noel was sort of saying, he asked me to come and talk about interactive installations. So I'm not really going to be talking about performance, but more some of my works that were done in gallery settings, and having a look at what those were, what I learnt from them. If I go through, this is what I'm going to sort of be talking about. I have a few key projects I've exhibited, and I want to talk about the takeaways, the learnings from those. I also want to talk about, I'm going to do a 2-slide boot camp with you guys. So if you do want to do work in art galleries, glam, museums, libraries, I'm going to give you a 2-slide boot camp of what you would need to do to make that happen. And then I'm going to give you a really quick overview on libraries and how they're supporting makers and artists in New South Wales. And then we'll finish up with a live demo of one of my inventions, the reactor cubes, and the joyride over here, where I'll invite you down to the stage to actually have a bit of a play. These were never really meant to be performed. They're actually meant to be engaged with in sort of gallery settings where people can come up and play them and explore and have a bit of a turn themselves. So I will demo them, but then I want you to come down and actually have a bit of a play yourself. So, okay. Oh, here's my credibility slide. We sort of already talked about this, addressed this, but I've been working in public libraries for the last 10 years, working in a few different creative spaces in public libraries. Particularly, I started working in Fairfield Studio 2166, which is a recording studio in Cabramatta. There's also a recording studio in Camden as well, in their public library. And I've just been brought into Campbelltown to set up a creative facility in Campbelltown as well. So really enjoying my work, encouraging creativity with the public in public libraries. But alongside that, always keeping my joy of technology and creative arts alive wherever I can. Okay, so for the first work I want to talk about, ignore all this on here, I'll just kind of talk about it and then show a little video. I want to talk about an exhibition called Moon Milk, which is back in 2018. And this largely was an extension of my honours work at the university here. And what it was a interactive, immersive installation piece that used surround sound and a Kinect camera to track people's positions and create audio depending on how they move through the space. It was developed with Museums and Galleries New South Wales, so they helped fund the project down in the Shoalhaven Arts Centre, and they invited me to come down and work with the community down there. So I did a number of development sessions with community to complete the work before it was exhibited in the gallery for a run of about 8 weeks. It was up for an Imagine Award back in 2018, which was a nice little nod to the work. But I was running against some fantastic artists, so obviously didn't win that one, but it was nice to be considered. So I'm just going to play now, this is a little video from the work. It's really hard when you are working in experiential works to actually translate that into digital mediums like video or audio, because the experience itself is what is most engaging. We could see here the setup was in the gallery. It was kind of like a giant tent that when you went inside, it would create audio and lights. Sound effects that were playing as people would move through the space. So here's a little look at a diagram of what was actually happening and what was going on. I had a 7-speaker array where I could move sounds around customers that move through the space using what's called vector-based amplitude panning, or VBAP, in Max. And you could sort of place sound objects around people depending on where they moved. You could track their position using a Kinect camera, so it could work with up to 2 customers at a time. Customers would walk in, it would track their position, and it would create audio depending on where they were sort of standing. And it needed to have the ability to create up to 32 sound files. It would be able to play up to like 32 sound files at once, but it needed to be able to go through an audio interface that could feed 7 different speakers, and I used 2 4-way amplifiers as well to then connect to those speakers. Here's a little video of me actually doing the setup. You can see I was using like a marquee because I wanted this to be portable. And here I am attaching all the speakers one at a time. And I needed to set up the speakers, set up the Kinect camera, it would map the space. There was then this physical component of like a false ceiling. Oh, sorry about that. And you can see we then also invested in this, what I call the star floor, which was basically Bunnings mats. And I drilled a bunch of holes in the bottom of them with just regular kind of lights and put them up underneath so I could light up the different sections of the floor as people moved through it. And as they kind of walked through, it would like flick the different lights on to make a bit of an engaging experience. So that came out of response from the community. So when I showcased it to them, they were saying, hey, some of their responses were, it'd be more immersive if there was some sort of use of light. And here I am walking into it at the end. We also changed the outside design, made it larger. So it ended up being 4 meters by 4 meters. So it's a larger space. And then also engaging from the lighting in the floor. I'll just show through to the next one.
This is a look. The first panel test, floor test for Shoalhaven Audio Cave. Now be able to walk on top of it. And here's a look at the controller. with 8-way relays, so I'll be able to turn on 8 of the different panels via this Arduino. That's it.
Okay, so essentially I could put those in a grid, turn them on and off, depending on where someone was standing with the Kinect camera. You could turn it on based on where they were walking. I'd map that out with an Arduino. And then the relays were very simple. They're just like switches. So they just turn on and off the lights. And it just added a next layer of immersion. And that was feedback from the customers down in Shoalhaven. So I changed the work based on what they were telling me.
Chris, could you just explain what a Kinect camera
This is the first...
and how it interprets space?
Yeah, so a Kinect camera actually shoots out a beam of infrared light. It grids it. So when it shoots out these beams, it looks at the space. And then it kind of, when people stand in that infrared light, it tracks their position. And I was using a software called NI-Mate at the time. And basically, it would look at all the data. You could get the position of a person's hand, or you get a position of their head, or you can get a position of their feet. So it would give you a kind of skeletal positions in that 3D space. And I would just look at the head data. So the data that came through, I would be like tracking the 2 positions of the people in the space. That was really important when you're doing surround sound, because what I could do is I could actually, if I knew a person was moving towards a particular speaker, I could make that speaker quieter so that it didn't overwhelm them and take away from the surround sound experience. So, yeah, just in the corner here. So it's just throwing a projection through that space. If I go back, the first picture I had actually on the presentation, you can see that that is the image that I would get out of the Kinect camera. So it could recognize where a person is. You can even see those are the speakers on either side of this project. So it would map the person, and you could have up to 2 people mapped at the same time. If you went to 3, it would start to get a bit confused. So that would be kind of a problem when you're in a public space, because you can't tell people don't go in 3 at a time. You can tell them, but they don't listen. So that's part of my takeaways.
And it's an off-the-shelf item.
Yeah, you can buy them off the shelf. It's much easier today to work with them than when I was working with them, because you can actually get the version 2, and they work with, I believe, Microsoft now. So you can actually integrate directly with them via USB. At the time, I was hacking it at the time, so you had to go through a third-party software that no longer exists. You can't actually get an NI-Mate anymore. So I've got one computer that runs it, and I'm never getting rid of that computer. So as you can imagine, because I still want it to work, it was great software, but now you have to pay a license to get NI-Mate if you want to do it. So, but yeah, this was one of my most ambitious projects. I'm going to talk about a few of my takeaways really quickly, particularly when doing interactive works. The first thing that I really needed to think about was this was a long runtime. It had to be survived for 8 weeks, okay? That's a long time, 8 weeks unattended, where I'm not there to just quickly tweak something, fix something, go out the back and reload a software, yeah? So one of my key takeaways is that installations need to be resilient. They need to be really resilient. You need to think about the physical setup effort. For me, I was carting this thing around in a Ford Territory. And it was designed to be modular, and it was designed to actually go into different spaces. So my intention was not for it to be a one-off installation, but be used in other circumstances. So I did think about that, but I also had to think about the setup time by myself. Could I set this up? And I had to think through the process. So physically, what's the physical setup effort required? You want to use dedicated hardware, okay? So you don't want to be using your regular laptop to be running your installation. You want to have a dedicated piece of hardware, a good, nice computer that's got some cooling in it or something in your server rack, so that it's going to run across those 8 weeks without interruptions. Okay, but I also had to think about 4-way amplifiers, multi-output audio interfaces. All these things had to work. So I had to think about the sensors control. I'm using Kinect cameras, Arduinos. I had to think about the software chain. So if there was going to be a crash in MaxMSP, if anyone's used MaxMSP before, it loves to crash. It loves it. One of its favorite things, potentially, back when it was version 5 and 6. So I had to think about ways around that. What if it did crash? What would happen? What would I do? And what I would do is I worked out, well, I need the computer to actually be monitoring if Max crashes, and then just run like a bat file and reboot the computer. So there was some like resilience thinking that you have to think about when you're doing an install, okay? And I had to design for distance. I couldn't drop everything and drive 2 hours down to Shoalhaven every other day to fix something or change something. So I needed it to work. The second thing is automation is essential. So to prioritize client ease, I've seen some other galleries and works where they've installed something and they hand the gallery people, here's a sheet with about 10 things that you've got to do to set up this installation artwork each time. Okay? They're not really going to invite you back, right? It's a lot of work. They don't want to be doing that for 8 weeks every day, turn up, turn on X, Y, Z. So, think about client ease. Automate the daily operations. I map the venue opening hours and run all the installation on timers. So the whole thing would power up, it would turn on 15 minutes after they got there, and this is all stuff that you can automate with you in Windows, okay, or in Macs. It's not that hard. But power scheduling is just like timers, regular timers that you buy at Kmart, okay? You can use those to turn things on and off at the right days and times. Also think about your BIOS settings, auto startup of equipment, auto launch software, so you can put all your everything should just load. It's a designated computer, so it can just load exactly what you need it to load in what order. And then again, I was talking about this earlier about crash recovery. Really think about some watchdog software, check for crashes, and trigger a file if you need to restart. And my final takeaway from this work is, the more ambition, the more problems, okay? I'm working with a Kinect camera, I'm working with an Arduino, I'm working with a USB multi-channel interface. Okay, anything can go wrong in that signal chain, and you need to think about it. Okay, the more ambitious that you are going to be with your project, the more components, expect more problems. Because you don't necessarily know what the issue is going to be. I had an issue once where Max decided that it needed to get a license update from the internet. There's no internet on site. You've got to run out and get a 60-meter network cable to be able to run it from a computer in the gallery right through just to reload the Max licensing, because every 6 months it wants you to update. Okay, so you just don't know, but everything comes with a potential problem. The more things you add, the more risks. Don't overpromise, okay? Simple, well-executed ideas often lead to stronger outcomes than overly ambitious ones. So there's no reason why a very simple idea delivered effectively can't be just as engaging to an audience. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But also plan for extra time. Projects are always going to take longer than you expect, particularly if you're learning a new technology or you want to implement something new. And I was always like hungry to do that new thing, and that would always come with a heap of learning on top of it that I wasn't expecting. And just match their ambition to context. Sometimes I had capability and capacity to do things that were just not needed for the job. So think about, okay, how can I simplify my hardware and setup for my install to what the client is expecting? Now this project had multiple iterations. I set it up in schools, I set it up in libraries, and I set it up in some galleries. But I used it for different purposes. So in a library context, I used it where they had a number of oral histories that they wanted to display innovatively. And they handed me those oral histories, and I walked away, and then I composed some backgrounds for those oral histories. Some of them were talking about the Camden floods, so I had rain noises going behind it and around it, and then those voices would kind of track and then follow the people as they moved through that space hearing those stories. So that worked in a really oral history context in a public library. I then did some workshops in schools where I set it up so that you could record directly into it. So with a microphone, I had them doing some poetry. And we did a little poetry workshop. They would read out the poetry that they wrote, or they'd read some poetry that we had, and then it would populate the space. Then they'd walk through and hear all the poetry playing around them, which was really, really fun. They loved that. And then also, we were doing some music workshops too, so they could make some music. And then I always wanted to take it to the next level where I would have multiple microphones. They could play multiple instruments into the space, go inside, and then it would break it up for them, and they could hear it in surround sound. Didn't quite get there, but hey, there's always next time. All right, that's enough about Moon Milk. I'm going to talk about another project I did called Unraveling Code. This was also shown at Shoalhaven Arts Centre. This was actually my first work shown there as part of a project called Tada back in 2016. It used barcode scanners. So it just used a single barcode scanner attached to a plinth, and we put a bunch of barcodes visually around the plinth to make it look kind of fun and inviting. And it had, we did like an LED light board on top. So this was just a series of LEDs of different colors so that when you would scan a barcode, it would light up the different lights in different patterns, and it would create a musical response based on what you scanned. So it would look at a barcode, series of numbers, and then it would assign it, say, like a scale. So it might be like, okay, well, based on the fact that this number at the end is a 9, it's going to be Mixolydian or Lydian, and that's how it would kind of change. It also then look at, well, how many numbers was this barcode? Well, I'm going to pick a different sound font based on that. So I was using that data to create interesting generative outcomes. So what are some of the takeaways from this? Simple inputs, complex outputs. Okay, it's really great if you can have a simple input, like a barcode scanner, but it's up to you what you then do with it. Okay, but for customers, people that are walking up to engage with your installation, it's really easy for them to just scan a barcode. But then their result is like, oh wow, this is different every time. So it's always nice when you can have a simple input with a complex output. I've got on here interaction design is a bit of an illusion. That's how I ended up kind of thinking about it. It's like what we do with the data that we collect that is exciting. It's not necessarily the data itself. There's so much data out there that we can use. The Kinect camera would give me data in Moon Milk, the location of people. I'm going to get data from my cubes later, which is just like what symbols are on them. But it's not about the data itself. It's about what you do with the data and how that's perceived by community and customers. Like, what's the experience that they have? Visuals matter, even for audio artists. This is the saddest thing for me as an audio artist. I thought I was an audio artist, right? I love audio, but Moon Milk never really photographed well. It looked like a giant box. It's really hard to photograph something that's experiential. So you still need to think about your visuals, no matter what. You have to kind of think, how can I even make something look simply fun? Even if the component is the audio, if it's an experience or experiential work, the visuals are still going to play a part. And I got on the bottom here, plinths are powerful. They're just fun. I like plinths. I don't know why. I got a plinth at work at the moment, and I just like put a bunch of chalkboard paint on it, and the kids come up and they're drawing all over it. It's great. They're structural, they're fun, play with them. If you're starting to play with structural things, grab a plinth. Think about it. Think what you can do with it. Think what you can build into it. It's really, really fun to play with plinths. They look great in spaces, and as soon as someone sees a plinth, they are taken out of their space, and they think, oh, this is an art of some description, because it's a plinth. I don't know why, but it works. Okay, this was another iteration of Unraveling Code that went into the Casula Powerhouse and the Children's Gallery called Mixed Use. I worked with the Casula Powerhouse there to create a work for the Children's Gallery that also leaned into that idea of barcode scanners, but this time it added a projection work as well. So the projection was developed alongside, again, you could sort of see in this picture here, it would look at the numbers on a barcode, and then it would give the brightness for each of the pixels based on what the number was. The higher the number, the brighter the pixel. It would run along in a matrix and make certain cubes brighter than others, and then it would select a shape based on how many numbers were in the barcode to then create a visual pattern. Now, that visual pattern would change based on what you scanned. So if you scanned a barcode, you didn't know what was going to come out. So it was really fun for customers to kind of play around with. I worked with the Art Centre on this one, and we actually put controls in the front of it. So we could scan different controls, and they control the music, things like tempo. I've got musical mode there. There was a few things that they could just kind of play around with and scan to keep it fun. And it would sort of give them that next layer of control that unraveling code previously didn't have. And it was much more aimed for children, this work. Interactive, trying to draw them in with lots of color, and then give them an immediate reaction.
Cool.
I obviously thought it was cool because I said that there. But that is a bit of a look at what it was doing. It was creating a musical pattern and a visual pattern in the space. Put that in here because I know Jay's been doing some teaching here, so just pop that one in. So a couple of takeaways from this one. You can evolve your ideas. So again, I went to another place and I was like, hey, you might be short on time and you might be thinking, hey, how can I evolve an idea? And then I can bring new concepts to something I'm already working with. That's fine. That gives you an opportunity to keep learning. Use generative systems, works that create unique outputs from different inputs. It means that people can keep coming back to it, particularly in a gallery space, and have like another go, which makes it quite engaging and fun. Now this is one to always think about, but balanced sound in public spaces. This is working in the gallery, in the children's area of Casula Powerhouse, so it could be heard throughout the entire building. So make sure that you build in a bit of a sound off that if no one's using it, it's not going to drive the staff and the workers nuts, because no one wants to be hearing the same things over and over again for 8 weeks or longer, 12 weeks. So I would always build in my works a shut off. Hey, no one's using it, no one's working it, it fades out, okay, until the next person engages with it. And think about playability. Interactive controllers like barcode scanners or layouts. You really want the audience to engage with what you're offering. So think about, how is the audience going to engage with this? That brings me to the Joyride. The Joyride here was another work that went into a gallery. It was originally designed as an instrument, and we kind of then took the instrument idea and we built this second version here that you're seeing. And this actually went into, again, a plinth in a gallery where customers could just come up and give it a play. So they could just press the buttons and change the way that they're kind of thinking about music, technology, and instruments. And it was just kind of a bit of fun. I mean, play is always a big part of what I like to do with customers. I'm not going to talk too much about that later because I will come back to it. All right, guys, so this is my 2-slide boot camp. I'm going to do this really quickly, but this should be, hopefully, everything you need for working with councils, art centers, libraries. This is your 2-slide boot camp. All right, guys, have an ABN as a sole trader, essentially for invoicing. You need to be registered to do this work. You're basically a small business. You need to have public liability insurance. It's a must. Nava offers a really great one for cheap. Okay, so you can get it really cheap. I think it used to be like $250, $300 for the whole year, and it would cover you and other people working with you. So not that expensive and necessary. No one's going to work with you without public liability. Provide formal quotes with payment info. So quote is not an invoice, but it's telling you how much it's going to cost. Every council is going to ask you for a quote, a formal quote. And when you get confused and send them an invoice, they're not going to be happy. Okay, so work out a quote is different to an invoice. Know your worth. Don't underquote. Cheap quotes raise red flags. So whenever I get a quote that is too low, I look at it and I think, what is the work that I'm going to be doing, because this person doesn't know that that work exists in their project. Okay, and often I look at cheap quotes and I go, let's go with someone more expensive. It seems stupid, but it's true. If you're quoting low, then that means you might not understand the amount of work that's involved with what you're doing. Okay? So definitely know your worth, quote appropriately, because cheap quotes raise red flags. Be clear on scope and costs up front. So if you're doing a certain part of a project, just be like, this is exactly what it's going to look like, this is what it's going to cost, and then don't change that midway through, okay? Don't change mid-projects. Document everything. Photos, notes, records, build a proper portfolio. Don't do what I had to do, which was go through my old Facebook to find a bunch of photos from these works. Please take lots of photos and video of your works and keep them in a place online where you can access them, because you don't know when you're going to need them again. Okay? Document everything you're doing. You don't know when that portfolio is going to be invaluable. Build a relationship with councils. Councils are clients with a job to do, so keep emails clear, short, and during work hours. Artists love to give you a really long email about everything they're going to do because they're so excited about it. And you just want them to get the job done, right? So please, councils are clients with jobs to do. For you, it may be a passion, but for them, it's a business requirement to a set standard. They need an outcome from you. For you, this is something you've been waiting for, but they don't need 15 emails from you about the design. Okay? You've told them what you're going to do it. That's pretty much it. Always get contact details. Don't wait for them for follow-up. This is one I always say when you go fishing for networking, right? They take your email address. Get theirs. Get their email. Say, oh, no, thanks. I see you've got mine. Get theirs. They are never going to email you. And that doesn't mean that they don't intend to. It means they don't have time, okay? Get their email address, get their phone number, and then the next day, send them a friendly follow-up email. Say, hey, thanks. Thanks for saying you want to connect and work together. Here's my portfolio. Here's some of the things I thought we could do X, Y, Z. Keep it, short. You never know when that is going to pay off. So build relationships without being pushy. Councils may only engage once or twice a year. So often when they're working with contracts, you think, oh, this guy's never going to call me back. 8 months later, they say, hey, actually, you want to come and do something? They still know, but they just work in really long schedules. They're working 6 to 12 months ahead or more. Okay, so you got to get on their books. You got to get on their network, and they might engage you once or twice a year. And persistence pays off. Opportunities take steady effort, like pushing something else uphill. But keep going, and don't sort of worry if someone doesn't get back to you or something didn't work out. Just keep going. Keep going. Okay. All right, I'm going to shift gears here. I'm going to talk about public libraries and creative facilities because this is largely what I'm doing now. So this is a space that we've just put together in the new Campbelltown Library about 3 months ago. I had a bit of a remit when I came on board to deck out their new creative facility. We got a grant from the State Library for about $25,000 and I got to buy some fun kit. And I got some laser cutters, 3D printers, robotics table with robots. Also got some audio equipment, podcasting, sewing machines, all kinds of stuff that makers and creators might like in a public setting. Now, why would I be talking to you guys about public libraries, right? When we're music students, right? Music, public libraries doesn't always seem like it might go hand in hand, right? Well, I asked ChatGPT. I said, ChatGPT, give me a list of every public library in New South Wales that says it's got a creative facility, a studio, or a makerspace. And it pumped out at least 20 to 30 different public libraries in New South Wales. Okay? I've even I said, hey, give me a graph too of where they are. So they're all clustered. A lot of them are clustered around Sydney. Okay? This is an untapped potential for creatives because they can go into spaces and work with people who are not creative. They're often run or put together by people that are begging for someone creative to come in and help run it. Or run workshops, or show people how to make podcasts, or how to record music. There is so much workshop potential or engagement with community potential in public libraries that's creative. And this didn't even include our one in Campbelltown, right? So there's plenty of opportunities out there with people that are just, begging for the knowledge of creatives. So there I am playing a banana piano that we just sort of set up in the public library. I have a new kind of phrase that I love to work with called quick and dirty installations. And I start to think about how can I do stuff with cardboard and scratch or do things really quickly. On the right here, I've got a giant joystick I made and just chucked it out for the kids to play as part of a robotics workshop. They loved it. They were jumping on it. It's cardboard. I didn't care. It's fine. Get on there. I also had it on the left there. It's like, hey, we just got some old boxes. Quick. Can we make a piano today? Yeah, we can make a piano today. That's fine. Let's do it. So I'm really enjoying sort of quick and dirty installations in public libraries. It's really fun, kind of blow up some kids' minds, really get them sort of thinking about interactive design from a really kind of young age. I would have loved to see this kind of thing if I walked into a public library when I was a kid. You know? All right, guys, so what we're going to do next is I'll do a little demo. I brought in 2 works that I kind of show off. I'll do a little demo of the Reactor Cubes, which is a work here that uses a software called Reactor Vision to look at markers or visual markers. And then it feeds that information into MaxMSP to play sound files. And then I also have the Joyride here. So I might demo this first, and then I'll get you guys to come up and have a bit of a play. It's kind of the end of the formal presentation, and then sort of take any questions you guys have too.
Just explain to Flynn and Miriam what MaxMSP is.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So MaxMSP is like a visual programming language for, really was designed for creative people like us who might not be interested in coding via text. And it gives you a visual display so you can kind of drag and drop bits together. The software doesn't really do anything. It allows you to do what you want to do. It's kind of like an open sandbox. And it gives you all the tools that you need to kind of create interactive designs. Yeah, so this is actually using a patch. So I'll just exit out this. And I'll show you guys that what I'm showcasing today is actually using a patch here.
Would you perhaps describe it as an object-oriented programming?
Yes, why not, Noel? It's an object-oriented environment. But here I've got, I've sort of got the Reactor Vision feed through. So this is looking for all the information from Reactor Vision. And Reactor Vision is the other software I'm using, which I'm going to pull up in a minute and show you. And basically this has a feed through. Yeah, Brandon? Sorry?
Sorry, you can see the little P in front. He's given an argument in these little boxes. All these little boxes are objects.
They're all,
yeah. Each of them has an argument, and so it responds.
So these P's are actually patches inside patches.
So the P means there's another page you've gone
Yeah.
to, and it's feeding its information back to that object. So they become very complex eventually, but you start off with just this blank page, and you're pulling down objects and giving them an argument.
So basically what I need for this project to do, the Reactor Cubes, is tell me,
It just takes sound and messes with sound.
is it's going to tell me, hey, what am I looking at? And then it's going to tell it what sound file to play based on what it looks at. So I might give a demo first and then talk about this again because it might make more sense after we've done that. But I will bring up the Reactor Vision page because it's also quite fun to watch at the same time. All right, so now again, this is not designed as an instrument. It's designed as an installation kind of concept. And also, this was never really exhibited, so it's an unfinished work. But that's why I thought it would be fun to kind of bring it in and show you guys as well.
That's why it's not on a plane.
It would look great on a plane. Okay, so if I just cover these, all right, if the camera can't see them anymore, it will stop playing the sound files, they'll fade out, okay? I've sort of grouped them together in a way that the green one is a bunch of different drum samples. Just turn them over. And now the blue one is sort of designed to be it's a bass. And they're just all different samples. And what Max is doing is actually quantizing them together. So they were actually slightly different lengths, but it's quantizing them so that they'll play in time. Now I got another one that I can control tempo. So Because the reactor vision software can actually, it doesn't just recognize the fiducial marker, but it can actually recognize the rotation of the marker. So I can slow it right down. Or speed it up. And then I can just have a play, mix some stuff in. Find something I like, play around with it. Quite like that. I think the white one I sort of did was sort of cinematic synth sounds. Although I can't remember what they were, so sometimes just put them on and see what happens. Maybe even speed that up slightly. I think this is like sound effects of Black One. Alright, got a bit of a backdrop, so maybe show off this instrument as well. So this is the Joyride. It's a chromatic instrument now. It used to not be a chromatic instrument, but it's a chromatic instrument using arcade buttons. I can go up different octaves, and then I can pitch bend with the joystick. So when you're really rocking and roll on stage, that's when you really want to really get into it. But guys, the reactor vision particularly, like I said, is not really designed as an instrument. I want you to come down, have a bit of a play. We've got about 10 minutes now. That's pretty much it from me. You can come down, have a look, have a play yourself. And then also, if you've got any questions, come down and ask them. Yeah? Thanks, guys.